All right, welcome to this week's market stats. We are going to have so much fun. We're going to talk about facts and fakes. We're going to talk about misinformation and disinformation. Mark, I'm so excited about today's call.
I love this. As soon as you said this is the theme, I was like, this is always the theme, right? This is the life we live in.
Oh my gosh, it is. I'll tell you what precipitated it was a call that I had with a girlfriend of mine last night, like Ivy League, brilliant, owns different properties in different locations. And she was like, "What do you mean you're sitting at an open house in a multi-million dollar property?" She's like, "People aren't buying houses." I'm like, "What are you talking about? People are buying and selling houses all day. In fact, we actually lost on a multiple offer situation a week ago."
There's both so much misinformation out there, there's so much disinformation out there. I can't wait till we discuss that topic. But it's funny because even if we aren't constantly watching the news, at the end of the day, we're seeing these headlines pop up left and right. And whether or not we're actually paying attention to them, they're still getting in there in the subconscious and helping make the decisions in the marketplace.
Absolutely. The first thing I said was real estate is hyper local, and you cannot take these big, giant, quote unquote, headlines, which is really a combination, honestly, of misinformation and disinformation. There's so much clickbait, Mark. It's ridiculous.
So much that I'm literally crying because I have an eyelash in my eye. Uh,
Oh, shoot. All
yeah,
right. Well, while you're working on your eyelash, let's talk about the difference between misinformation and disinformation. So, misinformation is a false or inaccurate information. Just really means you're getting the facts wrong. Disinformation is false information, which is deliberately intended to mislead. So, intentionally making misleading facts like the clickbait we see in our newspapers and all the other news around the world.
that's really the world that we live in now, right? Like we're in the clickbait world, and it all started with like internet trolling, but now it's like gone fully mainstream. And so what I'm seeing is like all of the same headlines that everybody else is seeing. But then me being the nerd that I am, like I actually go in there. Sometimes I put them on like where the computer reads them to me because I'm doing a bunch of different things. But you actually get down into the details of what is going on, and the fundamentals are all strong. And inevitably, these articles that have the worst titles, they're actually going into some of the meat and potatoes of it. It's just not actually making it into the headline, and therefore, we as Americans, we're not actually reading them.
Absolutely. Well, if it bleeds, it leads. And if people can grab us and hook us with fear, then most people are going to click on something that is going to talk about fear. So let's start with this. Mark, fact or fake? We can have a housing market crash just like the one we did in 2008.
Fake. All of the fundamentals that we did not have in 2007, we actually currently have. We have enough Americans that we don't have enough homes. Back then, we had too many homes for the amount of Americans that we had. Today, income levels are a lot higher than they were in 2007. Equity levels are a lot higher. And today's average homeowner has much lower rates than anybody had in leading up to 2008. And so, false.
Yeah, and Freddie and Fannie and repackaging, I mean, they're different rules now, right?
We have so many different safety preventions and loss mitigation preventions that anybody can utilize if they find themselves in a hard time. And so there are so many different ways to proactively avoid and prolong a potential default or foreclosure. It's just that whoever is going through that really needs to contact their servicer and talk to them directly about it. But like you said, there's federal protections in place.
All right. Fact or fake? The price decreases we are seeing in homes right now are because of depreciation.
False. Absolutely false. The best analogy for me to use for somebody to actually understand is the highway analogy. So let's say you're like me and you look at the speed limits as more of a like warning sign as opposed to like this is what you're supposed to do. And so we're going 90 on the turnpike and all of a sudden we see a cop up ahead, right? We slow down. Are we still going forward? Yes or no?
Yes, we're going forward.
And that's the same thing with home price values and appreciation. They were going over the speed limit. They saw the cops. All of a sudden, they've slowed down to the speed limit. And now things are actually still very much going forward, but at the same time, not over the limit like we were.
I love it. The speed with which we were appreciating no longer exists. However, we are not depreciating. Your houses in 2022 are worth more than they were in 2021.
Absolutely.
All right. Agreed. Fact or fake, the only payment people really need to concern themselves with when purchasing a home is their mortgage payment.
False. There's so many different elements that go into being a homeowner. Never mind, you've got your mortgage payment. Does that property have homeowners association? There are some properties that have multiple homeowners associations. You need to know about that. Never mind the fact that at the end of the day, you need utilities, you need water, right? You need to know whether you need to pay for gas or not. And at the end of the day, do you want to clean your house, or are you going to need a cleaner? Are you going to mow the lawn, or is the HOA taking care of that for you? There's so many different elements to it. So no, you need to go beyond the mortgage payment.
Absolutely. And there's also taxes. And I mean, one of the things I love about working with you is sitting down and ensuring that our buyers are very clear when they're looking at what their payments are in terms of affordability for every month. What are all the things that we need to consider before buying the house, backing it all out, and then determining affordability?
You can have two properties for the same exact price in the same zip code, and they could have completely different payments on it, right? And so that's where it takes a lot of teamwork and communication, but that's where we've got our clients covered.
Absolutely love that answer. Mark, fact or fake? If I wait in this market, I will get a better opportunity.
Ooh, that one is tough. That one is super subjective. I can tell you right now, what we're seeing is people are getting a lot of really good deals. They think that it will be better to wait. I would tell you that there's a lot of evidence that suggests that you would get a better deal now as opposed to waiting, but time will tell.
Yeah. And I would answer it this way as a realtor. Not everyone should be buying a house right now. So I'm not talking about this in an effort to get someone to buy a house. So let's be super clear about that. In the month of December, especially, there are opportunities because builders are trying to get houses off the books. They don't want to pay taxes on those houses in 2023. So there are opportunities. Call me. I've got plenty of them for you. There are less homes for sale right now, this time of year. However, these are the most serious buyers. If you are looking to sell your home now, you have the most serious buyers out there, and those buyers have less buyers to compete with. And therefore, you actually have a better opportunity to get a deal written and sold right now versus in the spring when it does start to get more competitive.
That competitive factor, that honestly, to me, with the experience that I now have, like that is why I would say now is the better time for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Fact or fake? In the spring, there will be more homes for sale and mortgage rates will be lower. Therefore, there's a better opportunity for buyers.
Yeah, there are so many different possibilities of what could happen, but we have no clue, right? And so, like, what is the opportunity cost of not knowing? Or, like I've seen with so many people, it really is just kicking the can down the road, right? Like, there are families that I spoke with in 2018 that didn't think it was a good time to buy then because rates were approaching 5%. Then they couldn't compete in 2021, and now they are still renting. And so, I would say everybody's decision needs to be made based off of them. And I would say you've got to really look at and exhaust the opportunities in the market today before you start thinking about what could be tomorrow.
I love that answer. That is so true. Fact or fake? If you're a renter right now and you're paying rent and you're comfortable, you're better off to buy a house.
Oh, fact. Absolute fact. First time home buyers, they've got a special spot in my heart. You know my story, Jennifer. Like, as an immigrant to America, seeing my parents buy their first home, seeing what it did for my entire family and the trajectory that it put me on, especially to now serve homeowners, like that is absolute fact. There's so many different elements to it, but it's not just the rent that somebody's paying that in reality, when you're renting, it's just going down the drain. It's also that lost appreciation, right? Those families from 2018, they've lost out at this point, probably combined just individually speaking, 200,000, just based off of the amount of rent that they paid, the amount of appreciation that they didn't gain. And then you've got to remember a part of your mortgage payment is going towards principal. That's why we call it a forced savings account. It's all of that loss of amortization, as we call it, or basically that additional equity gain that they would have gotten from paying down their loan. So fact.
Absolutely. All right. Fact or fake? Investors have a better opportunity right now to find property in Austin, Texas than they did 6 months ago.
I would say fact. I mean, 6 months ago, 18 months ago, there was no inventory to buy, right? So like it was whatever you could find off market and negotiate, like better luck to you. In reality, in today's market, potentially some of those investors that didn't sell, they may be more likely to actually accept those offers. There were a lot of rookie investors that got into the market in 2020 and 2021. They may not know what they actually signed themselves up for. And so I think right now is a great time for an investor to pick up property. With that being said, rates are definitely higher. And so we really need to look at what makes sense from where do the numbers need to be? What does that property need to underwrite as? And then how do we best create a financial solution to take down that property?
Love it. All right. Fact or fake? You can buy a house right now at last year's mortgage rate.
Yes, fact. So there's so many different ways, and I get really excited, but this is like one of those like, is compliance going to call questions? So rates are higher today, but there's ways to buy them down, right? With a lot of the temporary buy downs, yeah, you can, because you can get your rate down 3% from whatever that market rate is that you're getting. And so that is today a fact.
All right. So, folks, if you want to learn about how you can get last year's rates right now, contact Mark.
I guess anecdotally, we have an FHA buyer right now closing, and she's going to be at a 5.5 rate. And so her first 12 months is 3% less. So she's going to be paying 2.5. So in reality, it's lower than yesterday's rates.
Lower than last year's rates.
It is.
Holy cow. All right. There you have it. Okay. Mark, fact or fake? The best rate you can get is by putting 20% down on a mortgage.
Oh, this is like my least favorite and my most favorite at the same time. That is a fake fact. Everybody thinks you put down 20%, you get a better rate. False. You actually get a relatively worse rate than if you put down 15, 10, or 5%, depending on your credit score. All of that is public information. You can actually look it up. So at the end of the day, you will have a lower mortgage payment with 20% down. You will have a lower payment, but you will likely not actually save money relative to a lot of different strategies that you could implement. You and I, Jennifer, we both love the prepayment strategy. And so if somebody just does, let's say, for example, 10% down, and then just does a 10% prepayment on their first payment, they're going to save a lot more money than if they actually do 20% down as their down payment.
And that is a good way to end today's call, because that is part of the conversation that I had with the same girlfriend. Explained to her that if you balloon at the beginning and you take that same amount of money and you pop it at the beginning versus just putting 20% down, I said, it goes right towards the principal. And then overall you're paying. And she's like, oh my God, why nobody? And I'm like, you have to talk to Mark. I'm like, he's the Doogie Howser of mortgages. You've got to talk to this guy. She said, give me his number. And I'm not kidding you. She was like mind blown, because we were talking about possibly getting her another investment property. She's like shooting herself.
Sometimes, Jennifer, it's like I'm trying to convince people that the world is flat, right? And so like, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so we need to actually look at how a mortgage works. And so when you boiled it down to how it actually works as far as a payment schedule and what it actually does, it makes all the sense in the world. It's just like, how did we not know this?
Yep. And that's where we as a society, it's like anything, you hear it enough, you start to believe it to be true.
Absolutely. The reason why a lot of young people today get told that they shouldn't get a mortgage is because in the Great Depression, it didn't matter if you were actually current on your mortgage or not. The bank could have foreclosed on you, right? And so all of that thinking actually gets passed down generation after generation to where we just think these are just the truths of the world, and we just put our head down and we live our life, right? At the end of the day, home ownership next to insurance is the greatest avenue and vehicle for somebody to actually gain wealth. And so I think more people need to hear that message. So I'm happy to talk to your friend, and I'm happy to talk to anybody that's thinking about jumping into the real estate market.
Absolutely. Well, for those of you who came in this week to talk about market stats, just a real quick wrap up. We've got about 9,500 homes for sale right now in Austin. Last week, we put just around 700 homes under contract. That's 100 a day. So homes are selling in Austin, Texas. We're kind of flattened out on where our price decreases are. We're a little bit flattened out on where our price increases were. We had some of both. And let us know in the comments below. Did you have fun with fact or fake? Is there anything you want us to talk about? So with that said, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Jennifer Goodman in Austin, Texas, and I am chopping it up every week here with Mr. Mark Koretsky.
Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure as always. Let's go help some people.
All right, let's go do it. Thanks, Mark.